Hello everyone. Today we're going to have a look at some shortcuts for solving quadratic equations. So there's two types of questions we're going to look at. We're going to look at the type that has an x squared and a regular x term. We're also going to look at the type that has an x squared term and a regular term with no x's in it. Both of these here are squared numbers, are 4 and are 49, and that's going to be what we can use as a shortcut. The type that we're not going to look at, I'll write here in red, it's called a quadratic trinomial. That's where we have an x squared term, we have an x term, and we have a regular number. So it's a quadratic trinomial because it's quadratic with its x squared and also has 3 terms. So that's the type we're not going to look at, just the 2 types above. So let's get started with the first example here. In this first example, we have the x squared term and a regular x term. So first things first, we're going to move everything over to the left hand side, which gives us 3x squared. 15x moves over and becomes minus 15x, and that's going to equal to 0. Now, we're looking for common factors, hence our term factorising quadratics. So we're going to look at what goes into 3x squared and 15x. So I like to break it up and look at the actual numbers here first in front of the x terms. So what goes into 3 and 15? Well, that would be 3. Then what goes into x? What goes into x squared and x? And that's going to be x. So we have our factor here that we're going to divide into 3x squared. We're going to divide it into 15x. Or minus 15x. So first of all, 3x squared divided by 3x. The 3's cancel, so we don't have any number in front. Then x squared divided by x just gives us x. For our next term now, minus 15x. Minus 15 divided by 3 cancels to give us minus 5. And x divided by x cancels out. So we end up with 3x times x minus 5 is equal to 0. So now we have factorized this expression, but now we'd like to solve it. So if we got to the point where we have 2 brackets equal 0, what we can do is let each of those brackets individually equal 0. Each of them will give us a possible solution. So there's 2, that's why I'm writing or here. So we can say 3x is equal to 0. Or we can say x minus 5 is equal to 0. If 3x is equal to 0, we can divide both sides by 3. So we get x is equal to 0 divided by 3, or x is equal to 0. And that's one of our possible answers. So we can just underline that. Now looking at the other side, if x minus 5 is equal to 0, well, we can bring our 5 over to the other side and we get x is equal to 5. So that's a second possible answer for that question there. So looking through this, where we have an x squared and an x, our shortcut is to bring the both over to one side, see what goes into both of them, in this case 3x, then divide each term by 3x, which gives us the second bracket. Now once you're at the point where you've got 2 brackets, you let each bracket equal to 0 individually and solve from there using our old-fashioned linear algebra. Now we'll have a look at the second example over here on the right hand side. It's got an x squared term and it's got a regular term. This is called the difference of 2 squares because this is a square number, 4 is 2 squared, and 49 is 7 squared. The difference of 2 squares because difference means subtract. So all we have to do here is get the square root of each of those terms. So first of all, the square root of 4x squared is going to be 2x, because 2x times 2x gives you 4x squared. Now looking at 49, the square root of 49 is going to be 7. So we can say inside in the first bracket 2x plus 7. Again, 2x is the square root of 4x squared, and 7 is the square root of 49. So that's our first bracket. The second bracket is just as easy. It's the same as the first bracket, but we're going to put in a minus sign here instead. Now if you look back to our previous example, when we got into the point of having two brackets, all we have to do is let each bracket equal to 0. So we'll do that now. And again, we'll get two possible solutions. So we can say 2x plus 7 equals 0. Or we can also say 2x minus 7 is equal to 0. So solving on the left hand side here, if we've got an x term and a regular term, we can just bring our regular term over to the right hand side. Again, because there's no squareds here, we can just use our old linear algebra. So 7 comes over and becomes minus 7. Again, we can do this because there's no squares. And our 2x, then we can divide by 2. So this is x, divide the opposite side by 2. X is minus 7 divided by 2. On the right hand side, we can do something similar. Let's just underline our answer here first. So there's one of our answers. On the right hand side, bring our 7 over to one side, bring our x to the other side. So 7 comes over and becomes plus 7. And then we divide both sides by 2 again. So the 2x divided by 2 cancels and we're just left with x. Then 7 divided by 2 is another one of our possible answers, which you can then underline. So anytime you're dealing with a quadratic, you're going to probably end up with two different answers. So just bear that in mind. And the way to get there is by factorizing, getting two brackets, which are your factors, letting each one equal to 0. So 3x equals 0, x minus 5 equals 0. Over on the right hand side, we had 2x plus 7 equals 0, and 2x minus 7 equals 0. So hopefully that helps. And remember, if you want to look at a quadratic trinomial, which has 3 terms in it, just look at the other video we have up on Schoology.